The previous lesson had explained the propagation of errors as far as addition and multiplication is concerned. So today we are looking at something else, as I've already written there, subtraction. We want to look at subtraction and see what happens with it. How can you get maximum and minimum values where subtraction is involved? So for addition, just to review kidogo nilisema, in addition, if you want to get a maximum, you add the maximums. For minimum, you add the minimums. The same applies with multiplication. And we did several examples that if you go back, check, you know what I'm talking about. So let's consider these values here. I've written here a value of x which lies between 6 to 10 and y which lies between 2 to 3. I had also explained the meaning of x in this case. This means that the minimum value of x is 6 and the maximum value of x is 10. But if you wanted to get the actual value of x, then it would be 6 plus 10, then divide by 2, which is 8. So that idea must always be there. So imagine someone asks you to get the max value or the maximum value of x minus y. Kumbuka, we are considering subtraction, so that's why it is minus. So if you want to get the maximum based on these numbers, if I want to get the biggest answer, if I subtract these values, then I'll have to take 10 minus 2, because 10 minus 2 gives me 8. If I did 10 minus 3, I'll get 7. If I said 6 minus 2, I'll get 4. If I said 6 minus 3, I'll get 3. So the biggest value I can ever get from that is supposed to be when I say 10 minus 2, which is equals to 8. Looking at this 10 is the maximum value of x, while 2 is the minimum value of y. So unlike in the previous, for addition and all that, hapa kuna change kidogo. Nimechukua huku namba kubwa, nikachukua hapa namba ndogo, then I subtracted. So it means that in subtraction, if you want to get a maximum answer, you will take the maximum minus the minimum to get that maximum value. So for maximum value, that is in subtraction. If I want to get a maximum value, I'll take maximum, then minus minimum. To understand this, though, hata ukifanya next time iko easy kwako, it is as easy as the statement goes. Kama ni maximum and it's subtraction, you will start with that same name, maximum, then minus the minimum value that is required there. So it's for maximum, it's maximum minus minimum. So nitarudi ku stress on that later on, but briefly let me talk about minimum of the same. So if I wanted to get the minimum value of x minus y, minimum value, I'll have to go for nataka nipate namba ndogo, nataka niseme x minus y, namba gani hapa nitachukua zenye zitanipatia that smallest value. The smallest number I can ever get from this is if I say 6 minus 3. And if you're free, at your own free time, keep trying those numbers. Chukua x, chukua y, uone kama kuna yenye itakupatia a smaller answer than what I'm getting here. So it will be 6 minus 3, and 6 minus 3 is the same as 3. So the most minimum value you can get from this statement here is 6 minus 3, which is the same as 3. What is 6? 6 is the minimum of x. And what is this 3? 3 is the maximum of y. And again, just like in the other case, to subtract to get a minimum value, the numbers have alternated. Kuna yenye nimechukua kubwa, kuna yenye nimechukua ndogo. So from this we learn that if you want to get a minimum value in an operation, you will say minimum of the first number minus the maximum of the second number. So kuna hii kuchange minimum, maximum, maximum, minimum. But I say that I'll go back explain kwa sababu nilikuwa nataka niandike both of them, this and this, for that explanation to be easy. So looking at this statement, for a maximum value, just like the statement goes, for a maximum, nilichukua maximum, then minus minimum. Alafu for a minimum value, nimechukua minimum minus maximum. So like the statement goes, if it is minimum, you start with the minimum, then you minus the alternate, which is maximum. If it is maximum, you start with maximum, then you minus with the other, which is minimum. So in an example, using a question, because that should now help. If you're asked something like, wangeuliza question hivi, wangekuuliza given that, this is my first question, given that A equals to 12.8 and B equals to 6.4. So the question is, find the maximum and minimum value of the following operation. And the operation is A minus B. Propagation of errors is supposed to be in operations. So they want you to get the maximum of A minus B. It is minus. That's why it relates to what we have just explained there. So if I'm solving this question, it will be, tumesema, when you're subtracting values, if I want to get a maximum answer, I'll have to take the maximum of the first, then minus the minimum of the second. So for this question, I'll look at the value of A. A is 12.5. The maximum A can be is 12.85. Its actual value is 12.8. So the maximum it can be, it's 12.85. So I'll write 12.85 minus the minimum of B. B is 6.4. So minimum of B is supposed to be 6.35. And if you work out this, you'll get that maximum value as 6.5. That's supposed to be your answer. So look at that. Nimepotuna numbers. So I wanted to get a maximum value of an operation. I'll check. Is it subtraction? If it's subtraction, check the maximum of the first value minus the minimum of the second value. For the minimum value of the same operation, if I want to get minimum, according to what you explained, it will be minimum, then minus maximum. So you go back to the questions, 12.8. What is the minimum of 12.8? It's supposed to be 12.75. And therefore, minus maximum. What's the maximum of B, which is 6.4? It will be 6.45. And indeed, if you subtract these values, you'll get the answer 6.3. So that's my first example. So you see, we have numbers. It is now an operation. You want to get a maximum of that operation, you'll do that. You want to get the minimum, you'll do that. So it all goes with the statement and how it is. If it's maximum, maximum minus minimum. If it is minimum, it's minimum minus maximum. Next example. The next example is, I'll write the ages of two men are 45 years and 30 years. Rounded off to the nearest 5 years. So all the time I like doing a question that is in decimal point, and again, I do another question where rounding off is involved, so that when you're doing questions, you should get all the concepts. So this is now rounded off to the nearest 5 years. So the question is, calculate the maximum difference in their age. Another simple question. So there's nothing so straight on that. Wanataka tu maximum difference in the age. Of course, if you want to get a difference in something, you'll go for the bigger minus smaller. So I have the two ages. The first one is 45 years. 45 years, rounded off to the nearest 5 years. Tunajua mambo round off. If you round off something to the nearest, kama ni 45, then you round off to the nearest 5. The error will be plus or minus 5 divided by 2, which is 2.5. And if you have the other one, which is again 30, rounded off to the nearest 5 years, the error will be 5 divided by 2, which is plus or minus 2.5. These values, which are absolute errors, will help us get the maximum and minimum of the respective ages. So if you want to get the maximum difference in their age, max difference in the age, maximum difference in the ages will be, you're supposed to say the maximum of 45, your actual 45 minus the minimum of the other. Because we said maximum, you always start with the maximum, then minus minimum. So 45 plus 2.5 gives you 47.5 minus minimum. The next one should be minimum, so it's 30. 30 minus 2.5 gives you 27.5. So that answer is supposed to be, when you subtract these values, you get 20. Remember, it was years. So the answer has units, still remains years. So look, I've given you just 2 examples for now, which represent questions that have to do with the subtraction. In errors, come on and subtract numbers, and you want to get a maximum answer. Just say the max of the first minus the minimum of the second. And if you want to get a minimum answer, just say minimum of the first minus the maximum of the second one. So from there, the next operation is supposed to be division. Division is the next one and is the last one in these propagations. So using the same values, if x lies between 6 and 10, alafu y lies between 2 and 3, meaning the maximum of x is 10, the minimum is 6. The maximum of y is 3, the minimum is 2. Then you're asked to do the same thing, finding maximum and minimum values of certain operations. If you're asked to find the max value of x over y, how do you do this? To do this question, kwa sababu nataka kusave time, addition na multiplication zilitumia the same rules. And hapa, subtraction and division will also have the same rules. If I want to get the biggest answer, largest answer from this operation, I'll have to take the bigger value of x divided by the smaller value of x. That's the only way I'll get that biggest value. And in this case, it will be 5. So just like in the other case, in Amanisha, if I want to get a maximum value in division, I'll say max value divided by minimum value. So this is for maximum. So maximum in an operation will be given by maximum divided by minimum. It is exactly the same as what we did in subtraction. The only difference is the operation, but the rule is the same. Rule ni kama ni maximum, tunachukua maximum divided by minimum. I have done that. Take your time, kama uko peke yako, try to divide any 2 numbers, provided the first is x, the next one is y. Uone kama unaweza pata any bigger answer than this 5. So the operation is supposed to be that. Higher next. For the next is a minimum. Minimum value of x over y. So if I want to get the minimum value, which numbers will I take? Just like in the other case, I'll have to go for 6 divided by 3. That is the smallest I can get. Ujaribu any others. There is no answer which will give you a smaller value than this. And in this case, it is supposed to be 2. So how did I get this minimum value? Just like again in subtraction, for minimum, I actually took the minimum value divided by the maximum value of the second one. So minimum goes with minimum divided by maximum. Maximum goes with maximum divided by minimum, if you can see that. So ni vizuri ujue these operations and the way they go hivyo, because sasa kuna mahali itafika, then now we begin like doing questions. I'm still just explaining about how do you get a minimum value, how do you get a maximum value. Hatujafika zile sasa main operations zenye wanakuuliza relative error in an operation, absolute error, ama percentage error in operations. But Once you have this knowledge, then when you get there, uko ni step 1 tu unapita unaenda. So you have the idea there now. In an example on a question, unaweza kupatiwa kitu kama hii. Unaweza ulizwa, given that P equals to 12.6 and Q equals to 3.4. So the question is, find the max and the minimum values of the following. Of not of the following, just find the max, okay, yeah, of the following actually. And that operation that I'm talking about is P then divided by Q. So we want to start with, first of all, how to get the maximum of this. So if I want to get maximum, tushasema huku rule. Rule imekuwa maximum equals to max divided by min. So I'll go to this question, check. What's value P? P is 12.6, but based on the rules, I need the maximum of 12.6. It will be 12.6 by. And after divided by the minimum of Q. Q was 3.4. Minimum of 3.4 should be 3.35. And if you solve this, you should get the answer 3.7761. So now, nimefanya that operation. I was just dividing some two values, and to divide them, you simply need to do that. Do that, you have the value. If it was minimum value, minimum is given by minimum divided by maximum. So back to the same statements. P was 12.6. The minimum of P should be 12.55. Hizo ni zile lessons za kwanza hizo. Ndio hizi values zinatoka huko. Alafu maximum of the lower number, which is Q. The maximum of Q. Q was 3.4, so it will be 3.45. And indeed, if we solve this, you get 3.6377. So I've got a maximum value and a minimum value. Na hata ukiangalia from the working, hii namba ni kubwa ya hii. Saa ingine watu wanafanya vitu wrong so that amemaliza kufanya question, but ukiangalia the answers, yenye anaita maximum ndio inakaa minimum. That is the final answer. Na yenye anaita minimum looks like maximum. So ukifanya, here you confirm from your answers. Indeed, did you do the correct thing? Did you get that maximum value, minimum value correctly? Next example. One more example on that. You know, we can't do so many examples. We're still doing so much. So tunafanya maybe a few examples as possible. So, equation refu kidogo. The distance between two towns, A and B, is 800 kilometers. Rounded off to the nearest 100 kilometers. A car moves from A to B at a speed of 120 kilometers per hour. Rounded off to the nearest 10 kilometers per hour. Calculate the maximum time taken by the car to cover the distance. That's distance from A to B. How now your question on about time? Someone will argue that it's kind of related to linear motion, but topics relate. So this is linear motion in conjunction with the approximation and errors. So from this question, we have two towns which are 800 kilometers apart. But that 800 is estimated because it is rounded off to the nearest 100 kilometers. You know what that means. It means that there is an error of plus or minus 50 kilometers between the two towns. Alafu, the speed that the car travels from A to B is 120 kilometers, rounded off to the nearest 10 kilometers per hour. So in Amanisha, the speed has an error of plus or minus 10 divided by 2, which is the same as 5 kilometers per hour. So they want you to calculate the maximum time because things have been estimated. The car takes to cover from the time the car takes to cover that distance from A to B. So we know that time is always distance over speed. One good thing about such statements and this topic is ukifanya kitu yenye iko na formula, write the formula, because through writing that formula, it will help you know which kind of operation it is. It may be addition, unatumia addition rules. It may be subtraction, unatumia subtraction rules from the formula. It may be division, unatumia division. So after writing the formula time equals to distance over speed, I now notice that this here is division, and I want to calculate time. Now wananiuliza maximum time. So if I want to get maximum time, then I'll say maximum time equals to maximum distance, alafu divide by minimum speed, equal to. So the maximum distance is 800, but the error is plus or minus 50. So maximum distance will be 850 kilometers over. Minimum speed is 120, but there is an error by 10 kilometers per hour. So in Amanisha, absolute error will be 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So minimum speed is supposed to be 120 minus 5, which is 115 kilometers per hour. If you work out this, you'll get an answer of total time taken. That maximum time taken to travel between the two towns will be 7.39 hours. Or if you wish, you can say 7 hours, 23 minutes. So you see, it looks a big question. Then when it comes to calculation, what we needed is to your idea. In division, what am I supposed to do? In subtraction, what am I supposed to do? In addition, so this was division. I followed the rules of division for maximum and gave me that answer there. So there's one more thing I'll add on this before I end the lesson. And I want to say that here, as a student, si ati ukisoma una expect unafundisha addition, ati ukifanya question, everything in it will just be addition hapana. So what happens is sometimes they may use more than 2 operations, totally different operations. Maybe tumesema addition and multiplication follow the same rule. Division and subtraction follow the same rule. But you're asked a question where there is an operation, and in that operation, there is like subtraction and addition. How do you approach that question? So I will not do like the whole question completely, but I'll try to explain the main things as required. So suppose this was a question. If someone said, if A equals to 2.8, B equals to 5.4, C equals to 10.4, alafu D equals to 4.0. Find the maximum and minimum values of, then the first question. My first question is, first question A is A minus B plus C. If you see what I mean, Rona, all those examples you have done, we were doing operations zenye, kama ni minus ni minus, kama ni plus ni plus, kama ni division ni division. But look at this. There is subtraction, there is addition, and there is different rules to use when you're doing this. So if you want to solve this question, let's say you wanted to get a maximum answer. If I want to get a maximum answer for this, remember we said that for subtraction, you say maximum minus minimum for a maximum. So I'll follow that rule there. Alafu, for addition, tulisema ukitaka kupata minimum, you always take the minimum. This plus here is for C. This minus is for B. Alafu, this A is positive, of course. But in between A and B, there is minus. So, nikitaka kupata a maximum for this, I'll say maximum of A minus minimum of B. But in addition, for minimum, you go for minimum. So I'll say plus minimum of C. So the values are here. Hizo values zenye nafaa utumie. So you'll know how you can put them there. You can try putting in the values and see if the answer you get will be actually a maximum. If the same question was, I want to get the minimum of the same operation. So minimum would be, hapa, the main operation is subtraction. Subtraction and minimum, you go for minimum minus maximum. So I'll say, hii question ya kwanza nimefanya kitu wrong. Nilikuwa nimefikiria nafanya minimum. So let me just go back and do some correction first. Please, pardon me on that. Hiyo part nataka kufanya correction iko hapa. Nilisahau nilikuwa natafuta maximum. Ukitafuta maximum, kumbuka maximum in addition you take the maximum. In multiplication you take the maximum. But kama ni minimum, it's minimum. So for this question, if I want to get the maximum of this operation, for the subtraction one, nitasema maximum of A minus minimum of B. That is okay. Lakini, since it's maximum, na ni plus C, I'll take the maximum of C. And this made a mistake there, you may notice now. So, hiyo inafai to direct straight kwa hii minimum. If I want to get the minimum of this operation, I'll take the minimum of A minus maximum of, because anytime kuna minus, lazima kutakuwa na change of hiyo maximum minimum. So if it's minimum, you always start with minimum minus maximum, maximum of B. But it was minimum, and in addition, to get a minimum, you always take a minimum of that value. So I'll go for minimum of C. So you look, rudia hiyo statement mpaka uelewe. You know, you can rewind, you can do that. So try to look at those values, take these numbers here, then substitute them. Uone kama actually, indeed, the first answer utapata maximum itakuwa maximum, hii itakuwa minimum. Ukifanya vibaya, you end up getting the opposite. Yenye ulikuwa unafikiria itakuwa maximum becomes minimum. Yenye ulikuwa unafikiria itakuwa minimum becomes maximum. So be sure, I'm very aware of that. Next example, B. B question is AC minus AD. Haya, same thing. Hapa hivi kuna two operations. Kuna multiplication na kuna subtraction. So, if you come across such a question, kuna hii sign yenye iko in between these numbers, which is minus. Take this as the number on the left, alafu take this as the number on the right, alafu in between these two values, there is a main operation which is a subtraction. So if I want to get the maximum of this statement here, nitasema chukua, unaona side ya left kuna A alafu C. Na A and C, they are multiplied. Maximum in multiplication, you take the maximum values. Alafu minimum in multiplication, you take the minimums. So If I want to get the maximum value of this operation, I'll take the maximum of AC. AC is multiplication. So itakuwa max of A times max of C. That answer I'll get, I'll subtract. Unajua ni maximum. Na maximum inafaa ikuwe maximum alafu minus minimum. So for these other numbers, I'll go for the minimum. So it will be minus minimum of A times minimum of D. Because in multiplication for minimum, unachukua tu minimum. For maximum, unachukua tu maximum. Same question. If I wanted to get the minimum of this statement here, I'll take the minimum of what is on the left. So itakuwa minimum of A times minimum of C, then minus. On the right, I'll take the maximums, which will be maximum of A alafu times maximum over D. Hivyo. I'll do one more examples. Examples mingi zenye tutafanya huko mbele baadaye zitakuwa in operations when I'm looking for absolute error, relative error. Huko nitakuwa nafanya the whole question. But here, you try to follow this tukirudia in the next lesson, kwa sababu next lesson sasa inaenda hapo. Then it will even make it more clear. I'll do one more example. A question like A plus B over A plus B then over D. You see, nafanya hii kwa sababu ya division. Sikuwa nimefanya anything to do with division. You have this statement. In it, there is addition, there is division. So in this statement, kama tu question B, there are two main numbers zenye zime separatiwa by a sign there. There is the upper, the numerator, alafu there is this denominator. Then in between the numbers, there is division. So we take this division as the main sign. Alafu number ya juu ya chini. So when you want to do this to get the maximum and minimum values of the operations, take in mind that then useme maximum in division. What do you normally do? You take the maximum of the upper divided by the minimum of the lower. So upper number is A plus B. Maximum of A plus B itakuwa maximum of A plus maximum of B. That will give me maximum of A plus B over the minimum of D. That value gives you maximum. So the main operation was division. Kama nitaangalia division, kuna numerator, denominator. So I said, kama ni division, number ya juu, nikitaka kupata maximum, nitachukua its maximum. Alafu number ya chini, I'll take its minimum. So if it is minimum, and I want to get the minimum of this value, I'll say take the minimum of the numerator divided by the maximum of the denominator. So the numerator is A plus B. Addition for minimum, you take the minimum. So it will be minimum of A plus minimum of B, alafu divided by maximum of D. Same thing. One last thing I'll explain before. Nimesema hizi questions sasa wewe mwenyewe ujaribu kuput in these numbers and see if they will work for you. But before you do that, nataka kusema something about this. Hii number hapa. The error in this number is 0.05 plus or minus. Watu kosea. Saa ingine wanaweza kupatia question with such a value so that you may. Some people will say the maximum of this is 4.5, minimum 3.5 will be wrong. Maximum of this is 4.05 and its minimum is 3.95. Just watch that. Unaweza angalia vizuri from this error, subtract, add. Don't make that mistake next time. So when we come back, that's next lesson. We are going to look at now absolute errors in operations. Now that tunajua mambo ya maximum, minimum, getting to absolute error itakuwa easy. After absolute error, we look at relative error in operations. Last year we look at percentage error in operations. And now the questions that you see in exams are normally there sasa. So ukishaelewa hizi vitu zenye tumeexplain, that just leads you to now dealing with questions in sasa how you can do a question in an exam. So for now we leave it there.